Right, hello, and welcome back to part two of our podcast with Andy Green. So if you was listening last week, we was having a really good, last episode, we was having a really good chat about the creative side of photography and that aspect and the business side of it, and we ended up chatting on for too long. So we've now split it into the second part of the same episode. So we're gonna be looking more at professionalism within wildlife photography, what makes a professional, what makes an expert. And we're going to try and not get off topic this time. So,
I mean, we
uh,
didn't get off topic too much last time.
no, we didn't actually. To be fair, it was just very interesting, and it's a topic that we could have chatted a lot about. A really, really good one. I'd ask you both how you're doing, but it's officially been 2 minutes since we stopped filming the second part. But
I'm good, don't worry.
good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
I've got a fresh bottle of water next to me because my mouth was a little bit dry, and I'm pretty sure my youngest child is now asleep because he was screaming throughout all of that. And I don't know if anybody heard him in the background, but yeah, he's
Not a thing.
got my partner upstairs trying to get him to sleep. So right, I'll jump straight into it then. So professionalism within photography is such a controversial maybe and opinionated subject. So obviously there's the views that you're a professional if you earn more than this amount per year or less than that amount per year. Or I mean, the way I would like to see it, I don't know if you guys will agree with me or not, is I think a professional photographer, specifically wildlife, is somebody that can prove it with their images. So they produce top quality. Obviously, I know some photography is subjective, but speaking as a looking at it from a photography point of view, what's the word that I'm thinking of? I don't know. I can't think. I don't know what the word I'm thinking of. Obviously, where your composites right, composition's right, and your light's correct, and placement and all that. When all that's correct, if you can produce an image like that, if you have the knowledge to back it up of each subject that you are photographing, you have good relationships with the brands that you're providing from. For me, those kind of aspects is what makes professional. So we'll go to Dan first. Dan, what do you reckon?
I agree. I think sometimes it's not necessarily about making money. I know, if you were to deem or you were to Google what a professional photographer is, it would probably say, like you mentioned, Corey, X amount of money or 50% of your income is from photography. But yeah, it's about building these relationships with the brands. It's getting recognition from different companies, the lens companies, camera companies, et cetera, et cetera. And it's having that knowledge to back up your photos, because anybody can take a photograph of a kingfisher with absolutely zero subject knowledge. But I think it sets sets someone apart when they can back up the photo with, called out facts.
Yeah, 100%. So Andy, if you give us your brief, I mean, obviously, I would class yourself as a professional. I'm sure Dan would agree with
I
me.
would.
So give us your what's your opinion on it? What do you think makes professional? What point did you, if you do class yourself as a professional, at what point did you do that?
Yeah. I think I suppose from my point of view, you're actually talking the difference between an expert and a professional. So I think an expert potentially is all of what you just said, but realistically makes no money out of it necessarily. I think a professional probably you should be looking to not necessarily make your whole salary out of it or your whole lifestyle, but that's where the difficulty is. The term professional ultimately, are you doing a job that has anything to do with photography, be it earning £1,000 a year or £10,000 a year or £100,000 a year? So my personal opinion is I think there could be a difference between an expert and a professional, and obviously they can interlink. But from my point of view, I suppose I class myself as a professional. I do it also professionally, obviously, in outside of wildlife as well. So I do interior stuff and product stuff and headshot stuff for some of my clients. So yes, from that point of view, I do. But again, even for me, it's not my sole or even necessarily primary source of income. So that's where the argumentative side of the question comes, is that some people think if you can only be a professional if that's all you're doing, and I don't agree with that.
So I think
And I've had that as well. I make a bit of money off it. People ask me when I'm out and about, when they see the big 500mm lens, they ask, "Oh, so do you do it professionally? You're a professional?" And I never claim to, say I am. I tend to use the word semi-professional, but I've had people tell me that I'm not a professional. I'm just a hobbyist. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
so blurred lines with what actually makes somebody a professional, and people's opinions will always differ to someone else's opinions.
There's never going to be a right opinion, is there?
No.
Because some people are just it's something that they would die on is their thoughts on that. And I think when you mention the word expert and professional, I think to class yourself as an expert and classing yourself as a professional is two completely different things, because I think to be a professional, you've got to have some sort of expertise, but to be an expert, you don't have to be a professional. So I'm going to use this as an example, and I don't mind saying it because I know the person that it's on about will probably not be listening to the podcast. But I saw a post the other day of somebody being referred to as an expert, and I just looked at it and I think, how on earth can you be called an expert? Because so I went to university and I did a foundation degree. I did a degree in zoology. I've worked within the industry of zookeeping. I've done a lot of educational side within wildlife, and I still don't class myself as an expert at all, because fair enough, I could quite comfortably have a bit of knowledge on every species in the UK of bird. Well, maybe not every species, but a lot of species. I know some taxonomic names, some of their scientific names. I can give you a little bit of information, but to me, an expert in anything, if you're going to be, you could be an expert in, I don't know, I'm looking at my bottle of water. You could be an expert in water, and you have to know the ins and outs. An expert is somebody that can reel off 100% scientific or backed up facts on that subject. I know people that class themselves as a professional and can't do any of that, and that's where I think there's got to be a line. You've got to be able to, you've got to back up what you're preaching, essentially. And if you can't comfortably tell me the difference between a house sparrow and a tree sparrow, but then still call yourself an expert in birds and wildlife, then I think you're kidding yourself as well as everybody around you.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case. I think, like you said, with pretty much any subject, you can make money. If you just boil professional down to making some money, you can do that pretty much with any subject you want. But you certainly can't go and teach it at a top university. So I think the key to it is, as well, particularly wildlife photography, is what you are being a professional in. So from my point of view, yes, the photography side, and actually part of my workshops are the first part is actually talking about the settings and the composition and the actual photography in the field before you go anywhere near Photoshop or Lightroom. You've got to be looking at what you're actually an expert in your head and what you can offer your professional services at, and whether it is photography in itself, or like me, you're running a hide. I'm just developing a clothing brand, a photography clothing brand, for instance.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'll be. You'll have to link us to that, and we'll. I've been looking for a good, not a massive brand kind of based wildlife. Obviously, I won't go off on a tangent there, but yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, and again, it's just one of those sort of the idea of strings to the bow, because if you look at the average UK salary, for instance, is, I think it's about 30 grand, 29 grand or something.
Point me in that direction.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and this is it, and it does depend on where you are in the country, because I think in London it's 40 to 50 grand, so it's different. But if you look at that kind of level and you think, how would I make that level as a photographer? It's quite hard,
Oh God,
because
100%.
if you boil it down to, if you sell the print at 50 quid, I don't know what 30 grand divided by 50 is, but it's a lot, 600 of them. So you've got to then sell 600, which is 2 a day. And that's hard. That's really hard work.
Go back to the last episode, and obviously I mentioned about because of how employees are paying so well, it's kind of losing that. So, for example, I don't mind sharing my salary and stuff like that. I have nothing to hide. I work 20 hours a week. and I comfortably make about, on average, before tax, about 21,000 a year, which for a 20-hour-a-week job is obscene. And I know it's obscene given the fact that I know some people work a lot more than that and don't earn that much. And obviously, I'm not an idiot. I'm never going to say no to that. But it puts me in a comfortable enough position where I don't need to constantly be chasing. Obviously, I love wildlife and it's something I'm working towards. But I mean, looking at when I was a zookeeper, I loved my job. Like I immensely loved my job, but I worked a lot and I didn't earn a lot of money from it. And I pushed the professional side of the wildlife photography to earn a bit of money. And I ended up blowing myself out. I made a lot of mistakes that I know that I shouldn't have made. And it set me back a lot. But now I'm in a spot where I've got a really good job, a job that I actually love doing as well. I work for EE. It's a fantastic job, really good company, really good people. Because I've got this comfortable job, and my partner, she does all right for herself. She's at university and stuff like that because we're setting ourselves up. It's just given me that opportunity to sit back and just go into a little bit more depth of a plan of what, like, I've got plans for coming up, but I'm not worrying about getting them in a month's time. I'm focusing on, maybe 2 or 3 years time because I'm now comfortable, if that makes sense.
And I think that's the key to it. You see, I think that's why often photographers who are a bit more successful in terms of monetary terms are slightly older, because I think if you have a job like yours, I mean, you're in a nice position where you're not doing huge amount of hours a week for that, and so you have quite a lot of other hours outside of your working week to pursue photography and make the plan. But one of the things I would say is that for younger photographers is to think about it now, because say you think, I love photography, but I want a house and I want to get a job and I want to make a lot of money and all this, and you go out and you get yourself an amazing job, you go to London and you earn 60, 70, 80,000 pound a year, say. Once you've got to that level, if you're then living that level, 80,000 pound a year, 80,000 pound house, you're married, you've got your kids to pay for, all of those things, it's very hard to then go, right, I want to be a wildlife photographer, because to make 80,000 pounds as a wildlife photographer has got to be incredibly, incredibly difficult.
I don't think I know a single person that earns half of that.
No, they
in
don't.
wildlife photography.
No, I know people that do it for a living comfortably, but I can't imagine they're earning anywhere close to that.
I don't think I'd want to either. Honestly, I don't ever think I would want to be earning a full wage on wildlife photography, because let's say if you turn your hobby into a job and you overdo yourself, you're going to lose that passion for your hobby. So I think that's for me anyway. So you've got to have a fine line between earning a load of money from it and also still enjoying it.
It's difficult because I can't remember what's the phrase. If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life, or whatever the phrase is.
Something along those lines.
Something along those lines. And I think that if you make it so you've worked so hard to reach a high level in photography and you are earning that, but you're having to put in ridiculous hours, then you've lost the balance. And I think life, without sounding too philosophical, is about balance. So if you're earning enough to have a nice, comfortable life, then doing it all with photography would be wonderful. If you've overstretched yourself and then you have to open the hide on the Monday and you have to sell X amount of hoodies and you have to do 10, 20 workshops a month and all those things, then your hard work takes over the from the passion side. So that's what I mean. If you are at a young age and you think, do you know what, I'd love to work in conservation, wildlife photography, then you can start early and then base your life around what you earn from it, rather than being a trader in London and then deciding, right, now I earn all this money, now I'm going to do it, because it's difficult doing it the other way around. And if I think about earning that kind of money, if you would take 20 hours a week, if you have workshops, selling prints, talks, seminars, selling images to newspapers, hides, clothing brand deals, you can imagine how many hours that all adds up to. It's a lot.
Yeah, you've got to put the hours in. And like you're saying, to the young people that are pursuing that, I think it's important to have the education to back up what you're doing as well, especially. So, I mean, I took the route of not necessarily becoming a professional in the photography side of things, but just in wildlife in general. And I'll be going back to uni in a couple of years' time to continue that, because I'm still out in what I love doing, and it's just opening me up opportunities to continue that. And I think for me, and the plans, especially, like, I've got to consider my partner and stuff like that, my kids. We've got to compromise, and some people are going to be lucky enough to be able to pursue that for their entire life. But like you said, it's getting it done early. I waited till I was a little bit older to go to university and stuff, and thought it's not necessarily affected my life massively, but I'm definitely a few years behind where I could have been. But I chose to settle down. I chose to have kids and buy a house and stuff like that early, so I just went a different way around it. But
yeah, and the flip side, obviously, is, you know, from my experience personally, is that if I hadn't gone to university, got a graduate job, sold furniture for a long time, and then got into marketing and all of that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing wildlife wise now without it, because, you know, my all the contacts that I built up helped me do professional photography in other areas, that helped me get the gear that I've got, which helped me do the wildlife that I do. And so there, you know, there are different routes to doing it. I was 40 last year, and I'm just really getting into this sort of business of wildlife photography and enjoying doing all these different things. But I think probably one of the very key things is to make it very clear that not everyone has to be a professional in inverted commas. You could just enjoy it and not worry about it at all, because that's what, you know, in an ideal world, that's what you would do. You just enjoy it.
yeah, I think obviously me and Dan, we chat a lot about what we see on social medias and stuff, and we know that we're neither of us are perfect ourselves, but there's too many people now throwing the words around of professional and putting on this forte that they have worked hard their entire life to be there, when in reality there's people that have worked a lot harder and are nowhere near that point. So
yeah, I agree. It's people thinking, I hate to use this term, but it's people that think it's easy to earn the money, or, you know, build this business in photography.
not even that, but people that think it's easy to trick others into thinking that that's where they're at with their life.
Well,
like,
yeah, but I mean, I've come across, you know, guides up in, you know, the Cairngorms, for example, where I've just come back from, and they see so many successful workshop guides that do it full time, and think that it's easy to charge, I don't know, let's ballpark figure, charge 250 quid to go do a mountain hare guiding session in the day, and they don't have a clue about it, and they just think it's easy money. You know, and you know, somebody who's not in the industry could sit there and look and think, oh well, yeah, taking someone up a mountain to show them a hare is, you know, really easy. You know, 250 quid, easy day's work. But, you know, people in the industry will quickly disagree and say that it's not easy. But yeah, it just goes back to what I said previous episode. I think it's such an oversaturated market with people trying to earn money, but it's just sometimes really hard to be successful. I mean, I like yourself, Andy, I run workshops, but mine are more guided wildlife workshops. And the market for that's, I'd say, quite saturated, especially for where I run them. So it's sometimes hard to get bookings, and that's when I do fall back to, you know, just selling the odd print every couple of months.
Yeah, but the key for me for that is, and I think this is probably one of the main points for any person who wants to do those kind of things, is you have to be at a level where you're producing top quality photography and work. You have to have a body of work to back it up. So if you're saying I'm going to take someone around and do a workshop for 2 days, you know, finding birds of prey or whatever it might be, the first thing those people are going to do is look at your work and see if you practice what you preach. So as much as people might think it's easy to just run an event where you just take people away, you know, if I take an example of someone who I know, I don't know if you guys follow him, but Sean Weekly.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You know, he runs his ground level hide at Gigrin, but he also works for international travel company.
Wildlife Worldwide, is it, or something like that?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's it. And he does lots of trips. He's out in Japan, I think, at the moment. And
yeah, we were chatting
about this before you came on.
We were just talking about it because it's something. The snow monkeys is certainly something that I would love to do.
Yeah, but and the thing is with him is he's one of my favorite photographers, regardless of all that. And I've sat in a hide with him, chatting away to him. He's ex-military. But his quality of photography, and he doesn't do hardly any editing at all.
No, he's very basic, isn't he? But it works for him.
Yeah, but he's so knowledgeable, and he has such a good eye, and he knows how to use his equipment, and he knows the wildlife he's taking people on the tour with. That all that learned information that he's had over the years, that's what enables him to do those travel workshops. Any old person could do it, book a hotel and a flight for someone and take them on a safari. But you'd be a bit surprised if you turned up and they didn't know anything about the wildlife or couldn't take a picture.
Exactly.
I'm going to slightly disagree with something that I think that he said. So I think if you're running a workshop and you're guiding somebody out, I don't think you necessarily have to take fantastic images and highly professional images, because you might just be a crap photographer, but you might be an expert in getting close to that subject and putting your clients in a position where they can then use their photography skills to. So I know, I'm not going to mention name or gender or anything like that, but there's an individual that lives in Hull, and they do guided tours across the UK, well, across the world, sorry. And to be honest, they're not a good photographer at all. Their images they aren't technically correct. They're not very good. However, the people that they take on them tours and share those images take absolutely fantastic photos. So I think it's proof that as long as because this person does have the knowledge, and they probably have a lot of money behind them to get to these points, but I think as long as you have the knowledge, you can still run. And I think this is where it all stems from, is knowledge, because without knowledge, you're just an idiot with a camera.
Yeah, I think that's where the crossover between, running a wildlife business or making money as a wildlife photographer. There's a blurred line of there. So that person you're talking about is making money from being an expert and a professional in the world of wildlife, but isn't a photographer of incredibly successful published photographer. And that's absolutely fine on both counts. And then there's some people in the middle who do both,
Like Sean, for example. Sean is a fantastic photographer, and he's definitely an expert in what he does. I've been following a lot of his workshops recently. I mean, the work that he does with the pelicans over in Greece is
amazing.
It's absolutely unreal. I mean, look at his reels on Instagram that he's been sharing and stuff like that. Obviously, he's just hit. Well, I think it's past that now, but he was at 50,000 followers last time he put a post. He's at 61,000 now. His last
going up so quick.
Last three reels, 1.7 million, 5 million, 3 million. It's just mental. And that's because not only is he an expert in the species, because I'm pretty sure that's probably the main species that he's done a lot of work with, he's also an expert in photography as well. He's a fantastic photographer. His images aren't on the creative spectrum, I would say, in terms of editing, but technically they're absolutely fantastic. They're sharp. The composition of the subjects is absolutely spot on. And the subjects that he's photographing are interesting. He's not just going out and taking a photograph of a poorly taken black bear that isn't sharp, that isn't in focus, that isn't even sat nicely in the frame. He's taking photos of fascinating subjects like these. Is it the Dalmatian pelicans? Are there? Yeah. Dalmatian pelicans. I mean, he's got the bison over in Poland. He's got hippos and bee eaters and stuff like that.
His incredible body of work. But I think also what he is a good example of is where being a professional photographer, as it were, can take you, and it can take you into all different worlds. Weirdly, I was watching Dune, the film Dune, for the first time the other day. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have. Yeah,
I haven't.
Incredible spectacle, but I don't know, and again, I don't know if you know Danny Connor.
Yes.
Yes, I do know. She's a fantastic photographer and filmmaker.
Yeah, so she's got a Patreon, so I think she makes some of her professional money out of Patreon side of things. But she also, for instance, just talking about taking things in an interesting direction. She had one of the sounds from one of her squirrels in the film Dune.
Yes, it was a sound bite or something, wasn't it, from one
Yeah,
of the
just a little
characters?
squeak,
Yeah.
a few little squeaks, and that's obviously very rare and everything else. But her passion, particularly in Sweden, I think she is, and and really focusing on those squirrels, took her in that direction, and it opens another door. So there is so many different routes to go down, either in wildlife in itself, or wildlife photography that. I think that's what keeps it exciting, and if you can,
You're not just stuck to the same. Like in a retail job, your route is you go in as a sales advisor, then you go in as a senior, then a assistant manager.
yeah,
You've got that one path,
yeah,
which is boring. Like I say it to my partner all the time. Neither of us want to look back in 20 years and think, "Why the hell are we still stuck in the same retail job?" And that's why she decided 2 years ago it was time to kind of drop retail and go to university, because she knows after a degree it's going to work. But obviously, it's not the same as wildlife photography. Well, that is an aspect actually, because what she can do afterwards is just so vast, and it's the same, like say with photography, you can do like an obscene amount of stuff. Like the YouTube side of it, loads and loads of people are taking on YouTube now, and it's a really tough game. I've been doing it for a year, and I've still not even remotely kind of broke through on it yet. But
yeah.
some people have been doing it for 6 months and just do fantastically and earn a bit of living from it. So yeah, it's
It just
yeah.
goes back to the saturation, though, doesn't it? It's like if something starts to work well for one person, then 10, 15, 20, 30 people all jump on the same bandwagon.
Does that make it more valuable if you do make it there? If you're
Oh, absolutely. It proves that you've got what it takes to make it successful. If 100 people are all doing the same thing, but you and 5 others, for example, smashing the game, then yeah, obviously it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose like 10 years ago when YouTube wasn't as popular and there was the wildlife YouTubers that were all doing really well, it was such a niche market back then. Whereas now, bloody hell, every man with a camera is doing something on YouTube at the minute, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good platform.
And I think that's why I leaned more towards the podcast side of it.
Well, yeah, we were chatting about this. There's not really a great deal in the UK, and
I
that's
think
why
I did an interview for the Conquer Nature magazine last year, I think it was, and they asked me what was my goal or biggest aspiration, and I think at the time I said, "Oh, I'd love to start a YouTube channel." But then the more I thought about it, the more so many people went down that same path. So I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And like Corey said, there isn't really a market for podcasts around wildlife and wildlife photography.
oh, there is a little bit, but they're just not very good. I've had to listen to them, and they're just so bad. I mean, the guests are like, hey, we've got Steve. He has a photo of him hand feeding some pigeons at the local park. What a hero!
Yeah, no, I think it's the podcast. I've been looking. It's one of the reasons I was keen to talk to you guys, because it's I listen to a lot of podcasts about all sorts of different stuff. So it's nice to have one like this. It's social media in its own right, obviously, and I think that's, although you said about it being sort of saturated. I think the one thing it does sort of help breed is trying to stand out from the crowd and do something a bit individual.
It pushes you. It pushes you to
more people are pushed to create a more like kind of what you're doing, an artistic style to the work and just something different. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it makes your work horrendous, and you don't know until you give it a go.
It pushes you to produce. I don't want to hate this term, but it pushes you to produce better images than somebody else, and I guess it falls into that competition. But as long as it's harmless and doesn't become a negative thing to yourself and to the person, then yeah.
I suppose that falls into the category of it being subjective, though, because who's to say your image is better? I could have a photo of, say, one of my puffin images. We've got all three of us have taken photos of puffins. we could all have ours next to it. We could share that photo to 1 million people, and we can guarantee that not one single photo will do increasingly better than the other two because it's such a subjective game.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it was really interesting. That it's
definitely it's a broad topic, isn't it, that we could get lost in for another 2 hours.
So one thing that Dan wants to kind of get done with every guest is to find out what your work means to you.
Yeah, like a little rounding off question for every single guest. What does photography, what does your work, whatever it is, mean to you?
Well, for me, I suppose I've used the word passion probably way too many times, but I think having a passion and something that you spend a good chunk of your time doing that you enjoy really helps your well-being and just makes you feel like you're achieving something in a way. And I think for me, we talked about followers and likes and comments and stuff, and it's not necessarily the numbers. It's sometimes I get a comment or a message direct which doesn't have any other reason to it than just to be absolutely lovely to me about my work. And then I think how amazing that is, when someone just says an incredible thing and you've put all that time and effort, and I spend a lot of time developing and learning and trying to work out the best way of taking a picture, editing a picture. And I'm, like everyone else, comparing myself to other people, and like you do in every aspect of life. So when you get someone you've never met from Canada messaging you saying, just wanted to let you know, I can't wait to see your pictures each day. It puts a smile on my face. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you enjoy it and other people can enjoy your work too, without sounding super cheesy, it's a pretty amazing feeling.
I agree with that. That was a really nice way. That's very
there
beautiful.
You go.
Perfect.
That's good. That was a very nice way to put it. So I think that'll finish our chat there. Any questions you got left, Dan? Or
no, other than thanks for coming on, Andy. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been great chatting, guys. I'm really pleased. I'm looking forward to some of the guests, which have now got a lot to live up to be fair.
They do after that. Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on. If you hang around in the background while me and Dan wrap up on that, we'll catch up in a few minutes.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So, Dan, just before we finish, obviously we're going to do our photos of the week, and if it's okay with you, I wouldn't mind choosing the photo of the week this week because I've had a good look through, and there's one that I really love. And obviously next week you do a bit of your research and your viewing, and you choose.
Okay, go for it, mate.
Have you had a good look through the options?
I've had a brief flick through. I've been in Scotland, obviously, so I've not had a.
But it was really tough. There's a lot on there.
I've just had another flick through since I last looked, and
there's one winner, and that is Luke Smith. His photo of the Red Deer in Bushy Park. I think that's the best out of all of them.
Yes, it is it's a beautiful.
There is a reel of a blue tip by
Alex. I think it will be.
No, it's not. It's Jess Perry.
Oh, his girlfriend Jess. Yes.
So that's. I just want to. That's an honourable mention. I'm going to go top FIFA terms here. Photo of the year, honourable mention.
She, Jess also uploaded the other stag as well.
There were really good images, to be fair. I think just Luke's was just a little bit more. There was something about
the atmosphere is quite nice. The light is quite nice.
The bit of bokeh in the background and stuff.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, but
well done, Luke.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you need to add on before we finish?
No, nothing from me. No, we'll see you next time.
Is that it?
Next. that was the world's worst outro ever. No, but thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate all your support on the first episode. All the lovely comments that we've had. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to see this little idea that me and Corey had developing into this now. Yeah, it's been great, hasn't it, mate?
Yeah, you saved yourself a bit there. That was awful to start off with.
Yeah, I know it was awful. I know.
Yeah, just following up on that. Yeah, it's been good. The support that we've had, the listeners, the views, and the messages, and I mean, we've already finished sorting our season 2 guests out.
It's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it, to think that season 2 was sorted out before we even had a guest on season 1.
Exactly. So it's mad. But yeah, thank you very much from me for listening. And just please be happy to know that I don't have a lisp. So
he says we, for now anyway, until we get back to editing this, and it turns out you just did have a lisp all along.
Yeah, probably. So well, cool. Let's wrap it up there. So thank you very much. And next week we have got Chris Reed joining us, so that's going to be a really good episode. So yeah,
really
keep your eyes peeled on
Instagram
for the release of that one.
Yep. Until next time, guys.
See you soon.
See you later.